Not phased by harsh music.
What's happening, everyone? Back again with another tutorial, whatever you want to call it, walkthrough, tips, I don't know. But this time I'm going to show you how I would process vocals. So we've got this new track of ours, us featuring Lindsay T, and this is the vocal. So let's get stuck in. So I've got the vocal highlighted here.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest.
Dry, dull, not very good. But let's change that. So if I play it with the rest of the track.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
It's way in the background and just doesn't stand out. So let's change that. So first of all we'll grab an EQ. Pro Q2 is my favorite.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
Maybe 36.
Those were the hardest times.
You hear that? Don't need all that.
But it takes a little more to remind you, does it? And all we had before was a lie. Piece by piece.
And then we'll boost the highs. Add a bit of air.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
Alright, next then we'll add a compressor. The CLA2A is my favorite, and I'm gonna grab the hardware version of this very soon because I like it. And this is just the Waves one. I would advise joining the Waves subscription because you get some cool plugins there. I think it's like $9.99 a month or something, maybe even cheaper. So let's get.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more.
Yep, happy enough for that. And then another one from the Waves bundle is the Renaissance. We'll use it too. Renaissance Ox. So bring it down a bit.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
Say about -5 threshold. Let's have a wee nosy here.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you.
Yep. And then next up we'll use another EQ. This time we'll use from Plugin Alliance is the Mag 4. Again, you can get this in the hardware, but I like this.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you, does it? And all we had before was a lie. Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again.
Yep.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor.
Right, so next up then we'll add some reverb and delay. So just grab Valhalla Room is what I use. This is the setting I use for all my vocals. So you can copy it there, take a screenshot, whatever. So Command G will make a group. So we'll change the color, rename it to verb wet, and then we'll make another one. We will rename that to dry. It's just the dry signal, that's the wet signal, and then underneath we'll do delay. So we'll bring the volume down on the two wet signals, bring it to I about 6.8 usually does the job. So next up we will add an EQ, and we'll bring the mix down a bit.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the
We'll adjust that after. So we'll then just tame it, cut the low.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you, does it?
Next then we'll add an OTT. Now I find the depth, always bring it down to about 30 for the reverb, but by all means just play about with it and see what you can come up with. I find this helps for me, if you hear.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves up.
Right, so next we'll add a compressor in, sidechain. So this is the sidechain settings I use. This is basically the same as if you watch the vocal or the lead tutorial I done a couple of weeks ago. Well, it was actually the other day, but I released it a couple of weeks ago because I built these up. So anyway, nope, wrong one. We're going to sidechain it to the vocal.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor.
Yep. Right, so now into the delay. So what we'll do is we'll just use Ableton's delay. It's pretty cool and easy to use. So we'll do it the 4x4. Bring that down to about 20 for now. Same with the dry wet.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
And then just for fastness, we'll just use Ableton's EQ. Doesn't really matter what EQ you use, they all do the job.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked up.
And then OTT again. Now, I normally bring the depth a wee bit lower with the delay, sorry, because it can get very messy.
Do you remember me? Am I the same?
Now we just see when I boost it.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before?
So 25 I found
times,
works well for what I'm after. So then again, back in compressor, sidechain, and then sidechain that to the vocal.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a...
Right, so that sounds happy enough for that now. So what we'll do is we'll duplicate it. And we'll add in Sound Toys Little Altar Boy. So pitch that down, -12, keep transpose on, bring up the drive a bit.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times.
Yep. So then what we'll do is the first one that we done, we will duplicate that. And then we'll go around here. So these two are the normal vocals. Palm one to the left, one to the right. And then bring the deep one down.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor.
So let's check that out now with everything.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you, does it? And all we had before was a lie. Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember?
Right, so that sounds much better. Right, so what we'll do now is, again, the first one, I'll duplicate it. So I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. Delete that. I'm going to call this Vox Center. So obviously I need to change the palm. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it all the way up to here, keep that there, and then the same of these ones, I'm going to shorten them. Maybe we can raise this a tiny bit.
Do you remember me?
So with this wee bit here, if you listen, it comes in over the start of the drop. So I want to make like a wee stutter effect on it.
Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember?
Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Valhalla Room again. Command G, the group. Probably don't really need to group it, but I just like to keep things tidy. 36-ish. Use my one. 36. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to automate the mix from here. I'll let that carry on. Give it a bit of a bend, and then I'm going to turn the device on here.
Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember?
Yep, like that. Maybe turn this up another wee tad just for now. Fix all that later on though. Right, so then next up, I'm going to grab from Waves one knob pumper. I'm going to turn the offset right up to 180. And I'm going to pick 1/16. And then what I need to do again is device on. Need to get the right spot. do a wee bit less. Just bring it further. So if you listen again from here.
Do you remember?
Right, so let's turn that back down again to about -12.
Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember?
So let's hear it all then from where we started.
Do you remember me? Am I the same as before? Those were the hardest times, but we picked ourselves off the floor. But it takes a little more to remind you, does it? And all we had before was a lie. Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember? Piece by piece, we build it up again. Brick by brick, we build our walls again. Do you remember? Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember me?
So that's all you're hearing. Yep, pretty happy so far. Still want to add like a drum and bass sort of break here as this builds up if you listen.
Do you remember me? Do you remember?
Along there, have it going with them re-spaces, have a nice like drum and bass, loads of snares. So that's next on the agenda, but I just needed to get the vocals sorted because it's shit listening to an instrumental when you have vocals there. You might as well get them into the track. So, yep, I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed watching. And if you did, please subscribe and like and drop a comment as that helps us out. And there'll be plenty more videos coming soon. Just please subscribe to the channel, like the video and drop a comment. Just, I don't know, tell us to fuck off. Anything, just drop a comment. We don't care. So, peace out.
Not phased by harsh music.